It's 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. Your phone vibrates. 3 words appear, small, harmless, but loaded with the weight of something irreversible. We need to talk. By Thursday, her side of the bed is empty. By Monday, her Instagram stories show a new man's hands, a restaurant you've never been to, and a smile that once belonged to you. You stare at the screen, trying to solve a mathematical equation that doesn't add up. How can someone move from "I love you" to "it's complicated to meet my boyfriend" in less than 2 weeks? You replay the moments in your head, searching for a clue, a warning, a glitch in the simulation that could explain what just happened. But there isn't one, because this wasn't spontaneous. It was planned. She didn't break up with you and then meet someone new. She met someone new and then broke up with you, and that single shift in order turns heartbreak into revelation. I've seen this pattern countless times, in men sitting across from me with trembling hands, asking the same question you're asking right now. Was any of it real? And my answer is always the same: yes, it was real. For her too. But reality and strategy can coexist in the same heartbeat. My name is Melkor Huaman. I'm a specialist in persuasion, manipulation, and dark psychology. And what you're about to hear isn't a love story. It's an autopsy of emotional warfare. When people think of manipulation, they imagine villains in black suits, secret agents, cult leaders, or narcissistic masterminds. But the most dangerous manipulations aren't done in boardrooms or behind propaganda machines. They happen in silence, between good morning and good night, between "I miss you" and "we need space." Dark psychology is not about evil. It's about power, the subtle, invisible architecture of influence that governs every human bond. Robert Greene once said, "Love is the most effective disguise for power, and when affection becomes currency, every smile becomes a transaction." You might believe she simply fell out of love. That time corroded what once felt eternal. But listen closely. Emotional detachment, when executed with precision, looks almost divine. It isn't clumsiness. It's choreography. This is what psychologists like Robert Cialdini call pre-selection and scarcity bias. When someone senses that their value in a relationship is declining, they subconsciously test new sources of validation, not out of cruelty, but out of self-preservation. Women, especially, have been evolutionarily wired to seek emotional security. When that security weakens, the psyche initiates an invisible protocol: replace before you lose. It's not a gender war. It's a survival mechanism. Dale Carnegie taught that human behavior changes only when emotion collides with necessity. Edward Bernays, the father of modern propaganda, took that principle and turned it into industry. Control emotion, and you control behavior. She may never have read those books, but her instincts recited them perfectly. She doesn't fix what feels uncertain. She relocates her certainty. While you were planning reconciliation, she was testing replacements. While you wrote long messages asking for clarity, she was writing short replies to maintain ambiguity, a strategy as old as war itself. Sun Tzu called it strategic withdrawal. In relationships, it's disguised as "I need time for myself." You didn't lose her suddenly. You were slowly substituted. Every delay in her response, every subtle eye roll, every sudden disinterest wasn't random. It was conditioning. Each behavior calibrated your emotional dependency, teaching you to chase what was already gone. And this is where the pain begins to mutate into insight. Because if you look closer, you'll see that she didn't act alone. Society trained her to. Social media became her stage, dopamine her drug, and attention her oxygen. In that ecosystem, validation is survival, and attachment is leverage. Kevin Dutton describes psychopaths as individuals who use charm and manipulation to control emotional outcomes without guilt. Now, not every woman who leaves you for another man fits that label, but she may temporarily adopt its logic. Emotional detachment disguised as independence. It feels empowering to her, devastating to you, and perfectly rational to the modern world. Here's the brutal paradox. When a woman leaves you for another man, it often isn't because you lost value. It's because she lost stimulation. Novelty is the new security, and once she tastes it, Loyalty becomes negotiable. You wonder how she can smile so soon, how she can appear reborn while you still bleed. But what you're witnessing isn't healing, it's distraction. She's not ahead of you. She's just running from herself faster, and one day that velocity collapses. Still, none of this will matter unless you understand your role in the pattern, because behind every manipulator stands a participant. You weren't naive, you were untrained. No one ever taught you that attraction has rules, that love is a psychological game governed by reward, scarcity, and perceived power. You thought vulnerability was virtue, when in reality it was currency. Robert Hare, who mapped the psychopathy spectrum, showed that emotional predators rarely attack with force. They seduce with empathy. They offer what you crave most, understanding. And when you open the door, they study the layout of your heart like a blueprint. They know which buttons trigger your guilt, which silences make you anxious, and which apologies make you weak. This isn't paranoia. It's pattern recognition. You've been trained to misinterpret manipulation as intimacy. Every "you're different" was reinforcement. Every "I just need time" was a trial balloon, and when the results came back positive, she executed her plan with military precision. You might think she was heartless, but psychology says otherwise. Paul Ekman's research on micro-expressions proves that most people lie not to deceive, but to protect their constructed identity. In her mind, she wasn't betraying you. She was preserving the version of herself that couldn't handle guilt. Now, pause for a second. Breathe. Because understanding this truth doesn't mean adopting cynicism. It means reclaiming clarity. You can't win the game by pretending it doesn't exist. You win by studying it, mastering it, and refusing to play by the enemy's rules. That's what dark psychology offers. Not cruelty, but comprehension. It illuminates the mechanisms behind charm, control, and coercion so you can move through life with awareness instead of wounds. Philip Zimbardo once said, "The line between good and evil is permeable, and almost anyone can be induced to cross it." The same applies to love. Given enough insecurity and opportunity, anyone can rationalize betrayal. So, stop idolizing purity and start learning patterns. Let me make this clear. This isn't about blaming women. It's about decoding behavior that society romanticizes and psychology explains. It's about seeing manipulation not as black magic, but as human logic amplified by unmet needs. The next time someone tells you they just need space, translate it correctly. They're preparing emotional real estate for someone else. When they say, "I don't know what I want," what they really mean is, "I want options." And when they tell you you deserve better, believe them, because they already think they've found it. It's harsh, I know, but truth always arrives dressed as discomfort. Here's what I want you to remember before we go deeper. You are not a victim of her choices. You are a student of human nature. And once you understand how influence works, once you see the invisible wires behind attraction, attachment, and abandonment, you can never be manipulated in the same way again. The purpose of this channel, Invisible Power, is not to make you bitter. It's to make you conscious. Because awareness is the ultimate form of armor, and every scar you carry isn't a weakness. It's encrypted data about how the human mind operates under pressure. So if you've ever wondered why she moved on so easily, the answer is simpler than you think, and darker than you'd like. She didn't heal faster. She just started her healing before she left you, and while you were loving her, she was rehearsing her goodbye. In the next section, we'll dissect this pattern, the traits, the tactics, and the subtle manipulations that toxic personalities use to extract validation while keeping control. Because once you learn to read the battlefield of the human heart, no one can ever ambush you again. This is Invisible Power, and I'm Melkor Huaman. Welcome to the other side of love. You've seen the surface, the breakup, the sudden replacement, the confusion that corrodes logic. Now, it's time to see the machinery underneath, the invisible gears that turn affection into strategy and vulnerability into leverage. Every toxic dynamic follows a pattern. It begins with idealization, slides into devaluation, and ends with discard. Robert Hare identified this in psychopathic bonding, but it appears in everyday relationships. The manipulator doesn't fall in love with you. They fall in love with the way you love them. You become a mirror that reflects their value, and the moment your reflection stops feeding their ego, they seek another mirror. In the first stage, they study you like a project. They watch how you react to praise, how you respond to silence, what stories make your eyes light up. To them, every detail is data. When they compliment your strength, they're measuring how badly you need recognition. When they ask about your past heartbreaks, they're collecting the passwords to your emotional system. They don't call it manipulation, they call it connection. And you, starved for understanding, call it chemistry. It's not your fault. Our brains are wired to crave validation. Dopamine rewards us for every sign of approval. Kevin Dutton called it the empathy paradox. The more you feel, the easier you are to control. Your sensitivity, your ability to love deeply, becomes the very tool they use to shape you. Let's break it down. Phase 1, the idealization. During this phase, they flood you with attention. Messages, compliments, constant proximity. They make you feel seen in a way no one ever has. That sensation isn't random. It's engineered. It's called love bombing, and it activates the same neural circuits as addiction. Each notification, each gesture, becomes a small hit of dopamine. You start to associate their presence with relief, their silence with withdrawal. Once that pattern sets in, they own your nervous system. Niccolo Machiavelli wrote that the best way to control a population is to make them depend on you for security. In relationships, this principle becomes emotional. Totalitarianism. They give you peace so they can take it away. They make you believe that happiness is something you borrow from them. Then comes the shift, so subtle you almost miss it. They begin to ration. Affection. Texts slow down. Humor turns sharp. Affirmations vanish, replaced by ambiguity. You start to work harder to earn what was once freely given. Congratulations, you've entered Phase 2. Phase 2, devaluation here. The manipulator introduces confusion as a control mechanism. They criticize you softly. Disguised as concern, you've changed. You're too emotional. Just need space. These phrases are weapons designed to make you doubt your intuition, Paul. Ekman discovered that micro-expressions reveal truth, even when words, like watch their face the next time they say, "I love you." Does the smile reach their eyes? Is the timing off by a fraction of a second? That delay, that microscopic glitch, is the crack where deception hides. By now, your brain is conditioned. Their approval feels like oxygen. So when they start to withhold it, you panic, you double down on effort, you apologize for things you didn't do. You become addicted to fixing what they broke on purpose. Philip Zimbardo called this the psychology of captivity, when people internalize the rules of their oppressor. You begin policing your own behavior to avoid rejection. You censor your needs, shrink your boundaries, and rationalize their distance. You call it love. It's actually conditioning. And while you drown in confusion, they're already preparing their exit. Phase 3, the discard. This is the part that feels like death. Not because they leave, but because of how they leave with calmness. With closure already achieved, you beg for explanations, but they've moved on emotionally weeks ago. They're not cold. They're complete. You're still processing. They're already performing. Here's the harsh truth. People who use others as emotional batteries plan their departures with precision. They don't want chaos. They want transition. They construct the next relationship while still inside yours, ensuring a smooth handover of validation. They call it fate. Psychology calls it replacement attachment. Robert Cialdini's principle of consistency explains why you still defend them. Once you've publicly invested in the relationship, admitting you were manipulated feels like social suicide. So you protect the illusion that destroyed you. That's why people stay loyal to their abusers. It's easier than facing their own gullibility, but awareness breaks that loop. Let's decode the tactics they use, one by one. 1. Intermittent reinforcement. They reward you randomly, not consistently. This keeps you guessing, chasing, hoping. It's the same method casinos use. The unpredictability makes the reward more powerful than the reward itself. Behavioral psychologist B.F. Skinner proved that this schedule of reinforcement creates the strongest Addictions known to science. In relationships, it looks like this. One day they're affectionate, the next they're distant. You keep trying to return to the high of day one, unaware that the system was designed to keep you searching. 2. Gaslighting. They rewrite reality, one argument at a time. When you confront them, they shift blame. I never said that. You're imagining things and you're too sensitive. Soon, you doubt your memory more than their honesty. That's how power works, by convincing the victim that the wound was self-inflicted. 3. Triangulation. They introduce competition to regain control, a casual mention of an ex, a compliment to another person in your presence. Suddenly, you're fighting for attention that once belonged to you effortlessly. The manipulator sits back and watches, feeding off the energy. Jealousy. In their hands is a remote control device. 4. Projection. They accuse you of the very behavior they are guilty of. If they're flirting, they'll accuse you of being distant. If they're hiding messages, they'll ask to see your phone. Projection protects their ego and keeps you on defense. You start defending yourself instead of observing them. 5. Future faking. They promise a future they never intend to deliver. Trips, plans, dreams. These fantasies keep you invested. Edward Bernays would call it emotional advertising, selling you an image you can't verify but desperately want to believe in. When the dream collapses, you blame yourself for not being enough to make it real. By now, you might see how these tactics intertwine like threads in a web. Each one is a strand of control. Together, they create dependency so strong that even after the manipulator leaves, their voice echoes inside your head. You replay conversations, analyze texts, study photos, hoping to decode the lie. That's not weakness, that's withdrawal. Your brain is detoxing from an emotional drug. Stephen Hassan calls this the influence continuum, the spectrum between healthy persuasion and coercive control. Love, in its purest form, is influence with consent. Manipulation is influence without it. So how do you protect yourself? How do you fight psychological warfare without becoming a soldier in someone else's campaign? The first step is pattern literacy, learning to recognize manipulation before it matures. Ask yourself 3 questions in any relationship. Does this person make me question my reality? 2. Do I feel anxious when I should feel safe? 3. Am I giving more than I'm receiving yet feeling guilty for wanting balance? If the answer is yes, you're not in love. You're in a behavioral experiment. The second step is emotional detachment, not coldness but control. When someone tries to bait you with silence, don't chase. Silence is their test. Indifference is your answer. They thrive on your reaction. Remove it, and their power evaporates. Sun Tzu wrote, "The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting." In dark psychology, that translates to winning by non-participation. The manipulator's fuel is engagement. Starve them of it. The third step is boundaries. They sound simple, but boundaries terrify manipulators because boundaries reveal truth. When you say no, you remove the illusion that they own you. Boundaries aren't walls, they're filters. They don't isolate you, they protect your energy from counterfeit affection. The fourth step is self-validation. Once you learn to generate your own dopamine, no one can hook you with theirs. Celebrate small victories. Detach your self-worth from external approval. Remember, the moment you stop needing permission to feel valuable, manipulators lose interest. Finally, understand the concept of psychological contrast. Toxic individuals operate through contrast. They alternate between kindness and cruelty to amplify both. When you stop reacting, the contrast dies and with it their illusion of power. Now, let's humanize this with a story. There was a man, let's call him Daniel. He met a woman who mirrored his every interest. Same music, same humor, same dreams. Within weeks, he was convinced they were soulmates. When she pulled away, he blamed himself. When she returned, he forgave instantly. The cycle repeated until she finally disappeared, leaving him with nothing but questions. Months later, he discovered she had been in another relationship the entire time. Devastated, he came to me asking for closure. I told him what I'm telling you now. She didn't lie because she hated you. She lied because she loved how you made her feel about herself. And that's the essence of toxic love, not the absence of affection, but the hijacking of it. After understanding this, Daniel changed. He stopped chasing explanations and started observing behaviors. He studied Cialdini, Carnegie, Dutton. He realized that manipulation loses power the moment it's recognized. Within months, he rebuilt himself as not colder, but sharper. He learned to listen to tone, to energy, to silence. He learned that love isn't proved by effort, it's revealed by consistency. And you can do the same. The people who hurt you are not enigmas, they're patterns in human form. Once you see the pattern, you stop personalizing the pain. You stop asking why me and start saying never again. Because here's the paradox of dark psychology. Once you study the darkness, it stops scaring you. You stop reacting to manipulation with emotion and start responding with analysis. You become immune to flattery, resistant to guilt, untouchable by chaos. That's when freedom begins, and understanding darkness means nothing if you cannot use it. Awareness without discipline is paralysis. You've seen how manipulation works. Now you'll learn how to apply the principles of dark psychology ethically, to rebuild your mind, to reclaim your focus, and to move through the world with calm authority. I want you to remember one law before we begin. The mind that controls itself can never again be controlled by another. Most people think strength is loud, anger, revenge, domination. But true power is silent clarity. It's the ability to observe a provocation, feel every trigger firing inside you and remain unmoved. That's not apathy. That's mastery. Robert Cialdini called it the principle of contrast. When emotion surges, perception shrinks. The manipulator uses this blindness to steer your behavior. You neutralize them by doing the opposite. Expand your awareness exactly when they want you reactive. Pause before responding. Silence is your scalpel. Timing is your weapon. 1. Reprogram your internal dialogue. The first battlefield is the one inside your head. After manipulation, the mind loops questions that have no answers. Was I not enough? Was it my fault? Could I have fixed it? These are traps disguised as reflections. They keep you orbiting their gravity. Each time your mind returns to the memory, interrupt it with a single statement. That chapter is data, not identity. Say it out loud, because repetition rewires the subconscious faster than reason. Neuroscience calls this self-directed neuroplasticity. The brain believes whatever it hears most often. So stop feeding it regret. Feed it interpretation. Every morning before you touch your phone, speak 3 sentences into silence. I control what enters my mind. I respond. I do not react. No one defines my value, only my behavior does. It sounds simple, almost naive, but within weeks, you'll feel your emotional muscles forming again. Manipulators sense stability, the same way predators sense fear. Once your internal vibration changes, they lose interest. 2. Master emotional minimalism. Dark psychology thrives on excess emotion. Too much talking, apologizing, explaining. Each word becomes a breadcrumb leading back to your vulnerability. So train yourself to communicate in essence only. When someone provokes you, answer with calm brevity. Instead of defending your motives, describe your boundaries. Example, they say, "You're acting distant." You reply, "I'm just protecting my peace." No justification, no debate, just clarity. Dale Carnegie wrote that people crave importance more than truth. When you withdraw the emotional supply that feeds their ego, their mask begins to crack. They reveal themselves faster than any argument ever could. 3. Observe. Instead of absorb, Paul Ekman taught that the eyes read emotion before the brain names it. When someone speaks to you, watch their face, not the words. Tiny flickers reveal lies faster than logic. Does their expression align with their tone? Is the smile delayed? Does the body lean in or subtly pull away? Observation gives distance, and distance is the antidote to manipulation. Never rush to interpret. Let behavior collect like evidence. When you stop absorbing emotion and start cataloging data, people lose the ability to disorient you. 4. Ethical use of dark principles. Now listen carefully, because this is where many lose their soul. Dark psychology is not a weapon for revenge. It's a lens for awareness. When you use it unethically, It consumes you, but used correctly it becomes a code of defense. Here's how to apply it with integrity. Scarcity bias reversal. Don't chase what withdraws. Create absence strategically. When you remove yourself calmly, you trigger curiosity instead of pity. The mind values what it can't predict. Reciprocity balance. Give without attachment. Offer kindness once, not repeatedly. Persistent giving becomes bribery. Measured giving becomes influence. Authority through composure. In every confrontation, the calmer voice wins. Not the louder one, not the clever one, the still one. Because composure communicates certainty. And certainty is the most persuasive signal in human psychology. Controlled mystery. Do not explain your every thought. Transparency feels moral, but mystery creates respect. Leave some answers unsaid. People can't manipulate what they don't fully know. Edward Bernays built entire industries using these same laws on mass populations. We're not running empires, but our minds are empires. Rule them with precision. 5. The 3-day detachment. Protocol. Whenever you feel emotional chaos, implement this ritual. Day 1. Silence. No messages, no explanations, no digital stalking. You're not ignoring them. You're recalibrating your nervous system. Let the adrenaline crash without interference. Day 2. Exposure control. Remove visual triggers, photos, songs, locations. Each one re-anchors pain. Out of sight means out of loop. Day 3. Redirection. Replace the void with action that produces dopamine ethically. Workout. Creation. Learning. The brain doesn't care where dopamine comes from. It only seeks equilibrium. Feed it achievement instead of obsession. Within 72 hours, clarity begins to return. It's biochemical, not mystical. 6. Train your attention. Spam manipulation collapses focus. Scrolling, notifications, emotional flash floods. Each fragments the will. To rebuild dominance over your mind, you must train attention endurance. Meditation helps, yes, but so does reading long, difficult material, finishing tasks, delaying gratification. Every minute you resist distraction, you steal power back from the algorithms that profit from your weakness. Daniel Kahneman called it System 2 activation, forcing the brain into slow, deliberate thought. Manipulators exploit System 1, your fast emotional autopilot. When you pause, breathe and think slowly, you force them into the open. 7. Practice micro-indifference. Indifference doesn't mean coldness, it means control of response. In every conversation, choose one moment to pause 1 full second before replying, just one. That second tells your subconscious that you command the tempo. It trains the body not to obey emotional spikes. Over time, that pause becomes armor, and nothing destabilizes a manipulator more than calm unpredictability. 8. Rebuild your identity after betrayal. The ego seeks validation through explanation. You replay conversations hoping that if you understand the lie, you can reverse it. But identity doesn't return through answers. It returns through new actions. Change your environment. New gym, new books, new people. Every sensory shift tells the brain, we're in a different narrative now. Memory fades when context changes. Kevin Dutton once said, psychopaths feel less fear because their imagination points forward, not backward. Borrow that mindset, not the cruelty, but the focus. Forward obsession heals faster than backward analysis. 9. The ethical shadow exercise to truly master dark psychology. You must confront the manipulator within yourself. Write down 3 ways you've used emotional leverage on others. Guilt, silence, charm. No denial, no shame. Acknowledge it. Awareness integrates the shadow. Repression multiplies it. Carl Jung wasn't exaggerating when he said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Owning your darkness makes you immune to being ruled by it. 10. Social calibration. Surround yourself with people who communicate directly. Ambiguity breeds anxiety. When someone says one thing and does another, note it once. Don't negotiate it twice. Clarity is currency. Philip Zimbardo's research on situational power showed that ordinary environments can normalize manipulation. So change the environment. The pattern loses oxygen. Halfway through this transformation, I want to pause and speak to you directly. If what you've heard so far resonates, if you've felt the sting of recognition, then understand this. You're not broken. You're becoming aware. The pain you feel is cognitive dissonance leaving your body, and once it's gone, a new consciousness takes its place. This channel, invisible power, exists for that moment, when awakening replaces agony. So if you're ready to stop being manipulated and start mastering influence, subscribe now, not for me, for the version of you that refuses to repeat the same story again. Let's continue. 11. Mind-body synchronization control isn't only mental, it's physiological. Breathing dictates emotion faster than thought. Before every conversation that matters, take one deep breath through the nose. Exhale slowly through the mouth, and lower your shoulders. This micro-gesture signals safety to your nervous system, which in turn projects confidence outward. Paul Ekman proved that body language and emotional state are reciprocal. Change one. The other follows. Train posture, tone, and stillness until they become your resting default. Stillness radiates certainty, and certainty magnetizes respect. Dozy strategic withdrawal sometimes. Power means vanishing. Silence confuses those who expect explanation. When the manipulator reaches out with nostalgia, I miss you. I've been thinking about you. Remember, nostalgia is currency. Don't spend it, respond if you must. With composure. I wish you well, nothing more. The absence of reaction will echo louder than any speech. Sun Tzu again. When you are strong, appear weak. When you are weak, appear strong. In emotional warfare, the rule translates to, when they expect emotion, give reason. When they expect reason, give silence. 13. Ritual of renewal. Every manipulative experience leaves residue, small reflexes of fear and mistrust. You cleanse them through repetition of new identity acts. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you repair self-trust. Go to the gym when you said you would. Finish the book. Wake up when you planned. Each fulfilled micro-commitment whispers, I am reliable. That's how confidence grows, not from affirmation, but from evidence. 14. The art of controlled charm isn't deceit when used with awareness. It's social lubrication. Observe how you make people feel. Adjust tone, eye contact, pacing. Influence ethically by aligning intention with clarity. Robert Greene wrote that reputation is the cornerstone of power. Use charm to disarm hostility, not to disguise lies. When intention is pure, charm becomes diplomacy. 15. Mental simulation before entering any negotiation. Romantic, professional, or personal, simulate possible outcomes. Ask, if this person withdraws affection tomorrow, what would I lose? If the answer is peace, you're overinvested. Preemptive detachment keeps perspective. That's not pessimism. It's preparation. Military strategists rehearse failure so that victory feels familiar. You can do the same emotionally. 16. Ethical dominance. Dominance, properly understood, is the assertion of self-ownership. It's the ability to lead interactions toward truth without aggression. Speak slowly. Hold eye contact. Never justify your boundaries. Let silence verify your seriousness, Niccolo. Machiavelli observed that mercy without strength invites betrayal. Kindness becomes manipulation when it lacks backbone. So learn to say no without apology. It's the cleanest word in the language of power. Every discipline, martial arts, philosophy, leadership, shares one axiom: control yourself, and you control the environment. That's what dark psychology teaches when stripped of corruption. It's not about bending others, it's about straightening yourself. Imagine the version of you 6 months from now, unaffected by provocation, unshaken by rejection, a strategist of emotion, not its slave. That person isn't fiction. It's habit multiplied by time. So start now tonight. Before you sleep, write one sentence in a notebook. No one will ever use my kindness against me again. Read it tomorrow morning and the day after, until it becomes prophecy, because that's the secret the manipulators never tell you. The moment you stop seeking their validation, you become the mirror they fear the most, the one that reflects their emptiness back to them. In the next section, I'll bring everything together, a final reflection and mental challenge to close this cycle of awakening. We'll dissect not others, but you, the evolving self that learned to see in the dark. This is invisible power, I'm Melkor Huaman, and the real power begins when silence finally answers louder than pain. The Scythe. Noise has faded. No messages, no apologies, no ghosts tapping at your phone. Just the quiet hum of your own breathing. And perhaps for the first time, it doesn't sound like loneliness. It sounds like space. Silence is not emptiness. It's the echo of everything you used to chase finally coming home to you. When manipulation ends, when love collapses, what remains is not the absence of meaning. It's the clearing where meaning can finally grow. You see, all the strategies, all the theories, all the names, Cialdini, Greene, Zimbardo, they were never about others. They were mirrors meant to show you the architecture of your own mind. The dark psychology you feared in others was simply an exaggerated version of the same impulses that live inside you. The hunger to be seen, the terror of being replaced, the temptation to control what you cannot hold. We study darkness not to imitate it, but to recognize it when it disguises itself as love. Robert Greene wrote that power is the ability to shape perception, but the highest form of power is to shape your own perception, to see through illusion without losing. Compassion, that's the equilibrium the wise have always pursued. Sun Tzu called it the unmoved center. Huxley called it the still point of the turning world. And in the quiet after heartbreak, you can feel it, the strange calm that follows the storm. When you realize the enemy was never outside, it was the part of you that mistook attachment for a connection. Think of every person who ever hurt you as a teacher disguised as chaos. Each betrayal was a curriculum in awareness, each silence a lesson in self-respect. Pain was never the punishment, it was the signal. It said, you were giving love that was not anchored in truth. When you finally see manipulation clearly, resentment dissolves. You no longer need revenge. You need understanding, because understanding is freedom. The moment you grasp that control is born from fear, you stop fearing the controllers. We talk about toxic people, but toxicity is just unprocessed pain spilling into others. Even the manipulator is enslaved, addicted to validation, terrified of emptiness. When you realize this, compassion returns, but attachment does not. You can forgive without reopening the door. That's maturity. Empathy without access. Daniel Kahneman once said that the mind is a storyteller that confuses emotion for evidence. Every time you replayed the relationship, you were chasing closure that could only be created, never given. Closure is not an event. It's a decision. It's the moment you stop negotiating with reality. Pause here. Breathe. Notice that your body is still alive. It has carried every memory, every sleepless night, every unanswered question, and yet it breathes evenly. This is resilience, not concept, but rhythm. Your heartbeat is the proof that you survived what was meant to break you. If you can feel that, you already hold the secret. Philosophers spent lifetimes trying to name, freedom is not victory over others. It's absence of compulsion. You no longer chase, no longer beg, no longer audition for love. You choose it. And if it's not returned, you release it. That is invisible power. When you begin to live from this calm awareness, life stops feeling like combat. People will still lie. They will still project, still withdraw, still disguise their fear as pride. But you will not absorb it. You will watch it the way a philosopher watches a storm, recognizing that thunder cannot harm the mountain. The world hasn't changed. Your center has. Every manipulation that once triggered panic now becomes data, an echo of a pattern you already understand. You analyze it without malice, the way a scientist studies decay, not to judge but to comprehend. And comprehension is a kind of love, the quiet kind that liberates instead of binds. There's a paradox here that few understand. When you truly master dark psychology, you stop needing it, because the ultimate defense is transparency, the kind that cannot be weaponized. When nothing in you is hiding, no one can use you against yourself. That is why sages throughout history spoke of enlightenment, not as conquest but as clarity. Clarity ends the game. Huxley warned that the modern mind would drown its own distractions. He was right. Manipulation today doesn't come from tyrants with whips. It comes from screens that whisper compare. You defeat it the same way. You defeat personal betrayal, By remembering that attention is currency, spend it deliberately. Every time you give attention to what expands you instead of what drains you, you reprogram centuries of conditioning. It is small rebellion disguised as serenity, and serenity frightens those who feed on chaos. Robert Greene spoke of the law of reversal. When the enemy expects aggression, give silence. When they expect submission, give indifference. But the deepest reversal is internal. Where you once sought validation, you now seek understanding. Where you once feared solitude, you now use it as laboratory. This is alchemy, the transformation of pain into perception. You start noticing that influence no longer feels seductive. You watch charm and see calculation beneath it. You hear promises and perceive projection, but you do not condemn it, because you remember when you, too, spoke half-truths just to be loved, compassion without participation. That is the new intelligence, and yet there's one final frontier, forgiving yourself for the blindness that kept you there. Self-forgiveness is not weakness. It's the permission to evolve. Guilt ties you to the same frequency as manipulation, because guilt seeks punishment, and punishment recreates the past. Forgiveness ends repetition. Say it aloud, even if your voice trembles. I forgive myself for not knowing what I know. Now let that sentence settle inside you like a seed. It will sprout in silence. Forgiveness changes the texture of perception. You begin to see that every person who entered your life served a function, some to awaken love, others to awaken intelligence. Both were necessary. Without the wound, there would be no search. Without the search, no wisdom. The point was never to avoid pain. It was to discover what pain was trying to teach, that attachment without awareness becomes slavery, and awareness without compassion becomes isolation. The balance lives in the center, where you can hold affection and detachment in the same breath. Look around your room right now. Every object, every light, every sound is temporary, yet within you, there is a witness that does not change. It observed the beginning of the relationship. It witnessed its end, and it remains now unbroken. That witness is who you truly are, not the roles, not the heartbreak, not the stories, just awareness, still and eternal. When I speak of invisible power, I speak of this witness, the power that sees without grasping, that moves without forcing. The manipulator seeks control because they have forgotten this witness exists. You, however, have met it, and once you meet it, no one can sell you illusions again. Kahneman wrote that our greatest error is believing our thoughts are facts, but when you rest in the witness, thoughts become clouds, passing formations in the sky of mind. They may darken the light for a moment, yet they never touch the sky itself. That sky is you. This understanding is not meant to make you detached from the world. It is meant to make you present in it, engaged without addiction, compassionate without captivity. You can love again, deeply, fiercely even, but now your love is offered, not owed. You give because you choose, not because you fear. That is freedom disguised as tenderness. You may wonder what to do with all this knowledge, how to live with it among people still asleep. The answer is, live softly, speak less, observe more, influence by example, not argument. In time, your calm will teach louder than their noise. Your silence will become the language of truth. Remember, the goal was never to win over others. It was to win back yourself. When you master your mind, you cease being a player in other people's games. You become the field on which they play. You cannot be defeated because you no longer compete. Before we part, I want to leave you with a final practice, a simple vow to carry wherever you walk. Observe without judgment, act without attachment, love without dependence. Repeat it whenever you feel the pull of old habits. It will anchor you faster than any mantra, because it's not about belief. It's about remembering who you are beneath the noise. One day, perhaps soon, someone new will appear. They will offer connection, affection, maybe even love. You will smile, not from hunger but from wholeness, and they will feel it. The steadiness behind your eyes, the peace that no one else gave you. That peace is your signature now. Protect it. Dark psychology was the doorway. What lies beyond it is light, the kind that doesn't blind but illuminates. You entered this journey to understand why others manipulate, You will leave it knowing why you no longer need. To this is invisible power. I am Melkor Huaman. May you walk unseen, but never asleep. May your silence speak more truth than their noise. And when the next storm comes, may you remember that mountains do not fear the wind. They shape it.